Welcome to the TravelLight webinar, From Cubicles to Kilimanjaro, from the city to the Serengeti. This is a journey to your summit, August 19th to 31st, 2017. TravelLight is a company I founded that's dedicated to empowering individuals and organizations by bringing them to inspirational sites around the world. And I'm excited to share with you today what we're going to talk about because it really starts with you. Now we'll talk about who you are and the real reasons that you're here. 80%, a recent survey by Deloitte indicated that 80% of people are dissatisfied with their working situation. Something about it has them not feeling jazzed. And I want to discuss that, and we'll talk later about 4 ways to curtail that career dissatisfaction. So that's, something in here is what's bringing you here besides just the mountain. And who am I? I would argue that I've been on a very similar path where I had some deep-seated frustrations and dissatisfaction at work and made a different choice. So I would argue that I'm on a very similar path as you, maybe just a couple of steps ahead. We'll talk about those 4 ways to curtail career dissatisfaction, and then how purpose-driven travel offers a really powerful catalyst to making changes, permanent changes in your life. And when we talk about purpose-driven travel, it's not necessarily just about work. The healing that can come from a trip like this can extend beyond just the working world into your relationships, into your family, into other areas of your life. Finally, we'll talk a little bit about the trip itself. Kilimanjaro, the rooftop of Africa. We'll talk about the Serengeti a little bit and some details there. We'll also show some photos, some highlights of the recent trip that I went on in September of 2016. And then finally, we'll take a couple of questions and we'll look at some contact information so that if you're interested in this offering, you can reach out and we can have an enrollment conversation. We can talk about what it looks like for you and how you can use this trip to best serve you in your life. So why are you here? Why are you here? Professionally, something is a little off. And maybe that something that's off is visible, or maybe it's invisible. Maybe it's underneath the surface. So it could be that you've been quietly debating a career move or questioning your current role in some way. Could be that you're actively out there looking for a new job and you're in the interview process now or accepting a new offer. You could be very frustrated and believe that you're wasting your potential. I think that sometimes we get into jobs and they're great at the beginning and we're learning and growing, and then we hit a point where maybe we realize that there's more to life that we're able to offer. I know for me, I had a perpetually unbalanced work-life balance that became more and more difficult to maintain until finally I threw up my hands and said enough is enough. Or maybe, and I speak to a lot of female clients and potential clients about this, maybe you're unable to find that sweet spot between having a fulfilling career but also having a promising relationship. And so many women in particular bring this up as a point because it can be really challenging. Now, there's also reasons that you're here around the mountain itself. I mean, you're a person who's open to adventure. Kilimanjaro is not for the faint of heart, and it's on a lot of people's bucket lists. It offers a chance to explore a different country in Tanzania and a different culture. You're here because you believe in investing in your own growth. This is more than just a trip from point A to point B, and you're open to challenging yourself, not just physically, but maybe mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well, because this trip will get you out of your comfort zone. It absolutely did for me, and it made all the difference in terms of how inspiring it was when we did make it to the top. And finally, you're here because you like to have fun. and this trip is amazingly fun and so many great people that you'll meet. So I can relate to a lot of those things. You may relate to some or all of those points that we just made, but I'd like to think that I know what you're going through, because in my professional situation, I was working for one of the leading management consulting firms in the world, and I was there for almost 8 years. And the first 5 or so, I really enjoyed the challenge. I was up for anything. I was the go-to guy. And my practice began, or my group began doing different types of projects. So projects that were less around talent development and leadership and more around cost cutting, more around technology implementation. And it just didn't have the same heart and soul for me. It just didn't resonate for me like it did for some of the others in the group. There was actually a lot of turnover, but I kept quiet and I did several projects with the new focus. But it just became clear that if I were to be successful and I was up for a promotion to senior manager, that I would really need to commit to this path. And those topics didn't really have heart and meaning. Cost cutting was really about taking things apart versus stuff that gets me excited, which is empowering individuals and organizations. So I felt really out of alignment. And it was after one project in particular where I was working from 8 in the morning until 1 in the morning, falling asleep with my suit still on, my teeth unbrushed, not eating well, not exercising, real quality of life downturn. And even physically, my physical condition had deteriorated. My thumb was really hurting from using my mouse on my computer without a break, and I developed tendinitis in my elbows. And so I finally went to my boss and asked to move into the part of the group that did more leadership development work, and he said no. And so I saw the writing on the wall. He told me that I needed to focus on moving up to senior manager, and it wasn't what I wanted, so we parted ways. And that was an amazing and challenging decision for me, and it led to the forming of TravelLight. And this has been the most rewarding thing that I've ever done professionally. And it's led to profound transformations for people on the recent trip that we took to Peru and Machu Picchu. And I won't say that it's always been easy, but it has been very, very rewarding. And it's also led to other openings, like if you saw on that last page, like writing for the Huffington Post about travel and transformation. So let's talk about 4 ways to get unstuck. So we're feeling frustrated, we're feeling dissatisfied at work, we're feeling like there's something more available to us and our talents. How can we get unstuck and move ahead? We'll look at dropping the victim mentality. It's a mentality that's so easy to take on in this world where the finger's usually pointing at someone else or to something else. Disrupting your current pattern. Taking small steps to big change. And finally, investing in your own growth. I believe that these are 4 key ways that can help us get unstuck and move through our professional lives showing up a little bit differently. Let's look at the first way, which is dropping the victim mentality. Because I think that being a victim is the most unempowering stance you can hold. And in coaching, Steve Chandler and Dusan Jukic talk a lot about distinctions, and there's a distinction is kind of an inner stance that you can hold. So being an owner versus being a victim. And in that distinction, the victims spend a lot of time in the past. They spend a lot of time blaming. They spend a lot of time dwelling on the pain or the hurt that they've been caused or that has happened to them. Whereas an owner means creating a powerful stance in the world where I'm accountable for my emotional response and I'm able to show up in a responsible way for myself. I had an instance recently where I went to a restaurant, and my friend had tried to make a reservation, and they said call between this and this period, and they didn't pick up the phone. And so when we got to the restaurant, we had an additional half-hour wait, and he was fuming. He had brought this hurt with him from home for the last 90 minutes or so and demanded to speak to the manager, and they talked, and then the resolution still wasn't to his satisfaction. And it was like he had given all his power away. He was really in victim mode right there, as opposed to maybe moving into acceptance for what is. Even if it's not what the outcome that we wanted, there's a way to hold an ownership mentality in those situations. And so I just ask, as a suggestion, and I'll give 4 suggestions, one for each of these ways, is to identify a victim thought that you had today. Maybe it was, oh man, I was they ran out of milk at the coffee machines, just my luck. Or, oh, that guy cut me off on the way to work today, how rude. And maybe we could ask ourselves, how could I shift into owner consciousness? Another way to get unstuck or to move through the difficult professional place that you might find yourself in is to disrupt your current pattern. We are hardwired for routine. In fact, researchers say that we make 10,000 decisions consciously or subconsciously during the day. Little decisions about even where to look or where we place our phone. So when we're in our pattern, it's like, don't expect a different result if you do things in the same way. So I continue to be frustrated, or I continue to fall asleep with my suit on and my teeth not brushed. How could I change that up? How can I do things differently while still honoring my commitment to the role? And the more deeply your routine is ingrained, the harder it may be to disrupt. We have neural pathways that are formed, and then as we continue to do things in a certain way or take a certain route home, or when we go into our apartment or home heading for the fridge or turning on the television without even thinking, it's like we need to disrupt our current pattern in order to even see how we're behaving, because we're so in it that sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees. So a quick suggestion is to turn off your phone or don't answer emails one evening after work and really refocus on what it means to be present. I know that I'm guilty of that, of just sitting down and opening up my computer, and all of a sudden I've whiled away 2 hours, whereas I wasn't really present to where I was, and maybe I didn't even get that much stuff done. So a question to ask is, what patterns am I running, consciously or otherwise? The third way to get unstuck is to take small steps to big change. We hear all about big splashy initiatives by organizations and by individuals. We have these grandiose plans. I think about individuals and New Year's resolutions. The big one is getting fit. So gym memberships tend to spike in January, and people who are gym rats always complain that January it's impossible to get any machines or anything because all these newbies are on them. And then by February they fall away and it's back to normal for the next 10 or 11 months. And those big splashy initiatives tend not to work. The low-key change actually helps the human mind. You move past the amygdala, which is a part of the brain, and you move more towards the cortex, which can move towards change in a positive way. So you circumnavigate the fear that blocks success and creativity by taking small-scale steps to big change. And again, the more deeply your routine is ingrained, the harder it may be to disrupt. It's a really interesting story in a book by Robert Maurer called Small Steps Can Change Your Life, The Kaizen Way. And he talks about a guy who wanted to give up eating French fries. And so The first day he went and bought French fries, and he took one French fry and he threw it away. And then he ate the rest of his fries and he really enjoyed them. And the next day, he was getting fries every day, he bought some fries and he threw 2 of them in the garbage before he began eating them. And then he continued to enjoy his fries, and you can see where the story is progressing. And by the end, he no longer had the taste for fries because he had weaned himself off slowly as opposed to trying to quit cold turkey. And we see that a lot with smokers too. Oh man, I tried to quit cold turkey and I just couldn't do it, so now I'm back at sort of the first sign of stress or if a situation changes. And maybe one small step to big change is noticing once a day where your body holds tension. Is it in your chest? Is it in your legs? Is it in your throat? And just take a deep breath. Maybe even breathe into that area and then let it go. That's a small scale step. So a question is, how could I better connect with my team today? And if we're thinking small, maybe it's just raising your head from your laptop as they come into the room and looking them in the eye when you say hello. So often we're focused on our own stuff that we don't even take that time to be in the precious presence and connect with people. Finally, a fourth way to get unstuck is to invest in your growth. And that's in part why we're here today. Understanding the difference between an expense, I'm buying a Coca-Cola, or I'm filling up my car with gas, and an investment in yourself. And I bring up Kyle Korver because he was a middle of the road player in the NBA and had been in the league for about 8 years and made some good money in his career, but really it's hard to learn new skills and stuff as an NBA veteran. But he went to this company called P3 in the off season, and he worked and worked and worked on his footwork, worked on his explosiveness, worked on his symmetry, and got his body and mind working together in such a way that he inked a $25 million contract with the Atlanta Hawks on the downslope of his career. He reignited his career. He actually got invited to be a part of Team USA and go to those tryouts. And so travel is one of those things that, especially purpose-driven travel, because it gets you out of your comfort zone. You start to see patterns with a fresh perspective, and we're kind of melding the different ways to get unstuck here. So we're seeing our patterns with a fresh perspective, and we're learning about new cultures as well. One of the things that I hear is, oh, I'm not sure if I can go now, or oh, this and oh, that. I have kids at home and this and that. The lack of commitment to ourselves is what keeps so many of us from our potential. And sometimes the reasons are legitimate, but I challenge a lot of my clients to say, is this something that, and here's another distinction, it's like, I can do it or I won't do it. Kind of I can't do it, it's not possible, or I won't do it. Like I choose not to do it. And so many of us confuse those two because they say, oh, I could never do that, when actually it's I'm choosing not to, but I could if I really had to. If you had to get up and speak in front of 5,000 people, maybe that makes your knees all wobbly, but if I told you that if you didn't, then I don't know, you'd never be able to see your child again, I guarantee you that you would see it differently, and you would see it as a choice. You're choosing. You'd get up on that stage pretty quickly. So a suggestion here is to schedule an enrollment call with me just to have that experience. That conversation could unlock some things for you that you hadn't previously thought of. So why not give yourself that opportunity? And a question here is, how do you feel after you've done something you didn't think was possible? And for me, that feeling when I got to the top of Kilimanjaro was exhilaration. Like so much passion was running through me that I just hugged the trip leader and tears were running down my face. It was a really, after a 6 or 7 hour hike uphill on the summit night, when we had left at midnight in the cold was, man, that was a defining moment for me. So investing in your growth. Why purpose-driven travel? And I think it's best said right here on the slide that if you continue to live the life the way that you're living, you'll continue to be frustrated about where it's going. And like I said before, I know because I've been there, we're on similar paths. And sometimes we're so in it that we don't know how to get out. And we looked at 4 ways to start to get yourself unstuck from your professional situation. Again, if you feel stuck in your professional situation, it does not mean at all that you need to change jobs necessarily. I would argue that that if we change how we show up to the issue, that could change everything. So this journey is uniquely curated to re-engage with what's possible and create substantial value in the quality of your life, moving you closer to the edge of the miraculous. We can see in the diagram where we are now, and if we don't go on the trip, we will create some value in our life. But this trip acts as a catalyst for something that we really want to shift or really want to move deeper into a fuller expression of who we have always been, but just haven't been able to figure out. And in my recent trip to Machu Picchu, I led a small group to Peru, and there are 3 quotes below. The first one is, "Who could ask for more? Super journey in every way. The guides, hotels, and restaurants have been exceptional. There's nothing negative to say. Peru is a beautiful country, and this trip has been a great way to view it. I will definitely be recommending TravelLight to friends. Thank you." From another trip participant, "The mental and emotional effort to explore new concepts paid off. It ultimately brought more emotional balance and control at work and at home." And that was particularly big for him, the sense of peace that he was able to bring and approach situations in a much more calm way really enabled him to be more successful in those situations. And finally, "Lewis, I just got a huge compliment from my manager about how my leadership and management grew so much this year and that he learned a lot from me. He said that my associate had grown a lot and that was due to me. This was in big part because of you. Thank you for the work you have done with me." And I appreciate all of those clients as well as the other clients who were on the trip who had profound transformations professionally and personally in other areas of their life outside their work. Let's look a little bit at the trip itself, besides just the impact of coaching and purpose-driven travel. Let's look at Kilimanjaro, August 19th to the 28th, and then an optional safari, August 28th to the 31st. So in Kilimanjaro, we'll do the 7-day Lemosho trek, which is a beautiful trek. It covers 5 different environmental zones going from the rainforest to the Arctic, actually, and we'll scale the Barranco Wall, which is more of a scramble, so using your hands and your feet to scramble up the side, but a lot of fun. And then we'll get to Lava Rock. We'll have a midnight departure to the summit to watch the sunrise and see the curvature of the earth. And I don't think that you can go on this trip and not come back with more fulfillment, more clarity in your professional career and in your personal lives. It's not possible if someone comes with a willing and open mind and heart. We'll do a lot of different activities, and I have tools and techniques to share with you, not only on this trip, but for you to bring home to further deepen into your success. And those include things like coaching and small group work and meditation. Maybe some of you have never meditated before. Maybe some of you meditate every day. But there are different techniques to meditation as well. I know that I've used meditation successfully to heal my knee which allowed me to run a half marathon last summer, and I'm happy to share my experience of that with you. Breathwork, some of you may be familiar with breathwork, but many more of you, my guess is, are not. And then just other various healing modalities. And on the safari, that's a 4-day trek where we will head to the Serengeti and the not as well known but teeming with animals in Ngorongoro Crater. And there are thousands of animals there, and the pictures below show a representative sampling of the animals that we'll see along the way. I wanted to show you guys some highlights from the trip, some pictorial highlights, because I think these photographs start to tell a story. A picture can tell 1,000 words, and these tell many more than that. So let's take a look. So we started off in Arusha, Tanzania, at the Honey Badger. That was our home base, and you can see a couple of photos. That's before we actually do the hiking. And after our lush accommodations, we head to the mountain, and we head to the Lemosho Gate. The Lemosho trek is a 7 or 8 day trek. We'll do it in 7, and it gives us a better chance of acclimatizing and summiting by having those extra couple of days. And we begin in the rainforest. And on the second day, we go around the corner and we have our first views of Kilimanjaro, and it rises up in the distance. It's the largest freestanding mountain in the world. And we actually hike around the southern side of it, and so we'll get a view of it from a couple of different angles. But this is day 2 is a great day. And then days 3 and 4 and 5, we move towards the Barranco Wall, which you see in the lower left, and the different views above the cloud line. And looking out onto the horizon, the sunrises and the sunsets are spectacular. And we would just all pile out of the mess tent where we were being served delicious, organic, some organic, and then fruits and vegetables and different types of food that we were eating that were healthy for us and that would give us enough energy for the hikes. We would just all rush out of the tent for those precious moments where the sun was just dipping below the horizon. And then finally, the summit night, we strapped on headlamps and we took off shortly before midnight, and it was an uphill climb, literally. And we got to the top right around sunrise. You can see the picture in the lower left, and then saw, much to my surprise, that the snow that we had seen from the bottom are actually like 40 or 50 foot glaciers that are right there, and you can see them in the background of a couple of pictures. And then we made our way to the well-known sign at the top of Kilimanjaro that you see in so many pictures, and just jubilant. I mean, just so excited and grateful to have been on this journey with all these folks. It's a really special week or so on the trail, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. Yeah. And so let's look at some more trip details as well. The Kilimanjaro portion of the trip for the 10 days is 4,200, and I do want to be clear that all clients receive pre-trip coaching to clarify intentions. So outside of just the enrollment call, I work with folks one-on-one, and then post-trip reintegration coaching in addition to accountability structures that we put in place, but time together one-on-one to solidify the learnings and the transformation, because what you learn on the trip will literally change and reshape your life. And then sometimes the most difficult part is going back to the real world where people expect you to do certain things, or you expect yourself to do different things, and all of a sudden you're acting different and people are reacting differently. So it's how can you reintegrate smoothly and successfully? And there's a whole bunch of techniques for that. The safari from the 28th to the 31st, that's an additional $1,200. There is an early bird sign up for the month of February, and it brings the price of Kilimanjaro down to $3,850 if the non-refundable deposit of $1,200 is received by February 28th, the last day of the month. And then there are also coaching package discounts if you choose to step into a coaching relationship with me that can also provide up to a couple of $1,000s off the trip as a whole. So the trip includes so many things, and there's a list below of most of them. I mean, the 7-day park fees, the camping fees, the crew park fees, the meals, the basic equipment, meaning tents and foam rolls, transportation for you and for the crew, and we're doing a service project as well early on in Arusha to benefit the local community before our hike. The main things that the trip excludes are airfare and gratuities, any souvenirs that you're interested in buying along the way, and alcohol, although there really isn't a lot of time to drink beer or wine while you're on the trek. It's heavy and no one wants to carry that. So I can open it up to questions right now, and I just want to thank everyone for spending time listening to the webinar today. It's been such a treat going through this, and really in some ways being able to connect with you maybe for the first time, but also to relive some of the glory of Kilimanjaro and the Serengeti, and just get all pumped up again about it, because it's again, it's a trip around the world, and you will learn a lot about yourself and see a part of the world that you've never seen before. It's an amazing experience, and we have a great guide in Joseph and his company, and everything's very professionally run and safe, and I'm looking forward to experiencing all of that with you. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining the webinar. I really look forward to connecting with everyone one-on-one. Please email me at luisamoroso@travellight.world, and let's set up some time to talk. Let's have that enrollment call, and at the very least, that enrollment call is an investment in your growth. It's an investment of your time, and again, that may provide you with some insight or some focus that you didn't have before that makes a tangible difference in your life. I'm so thankful to have had the opportunity to relive the trip in some ways with you. Talking about Kilimanjaro gets me that much more excited about it, and I'm looking forward to connecting. If you know of someone else who can benefit from this opportunity, please let them listen to the webinar, forward it to them, or bring it up to them in conversation. I'd love to get connected and work with them as well. Have a great rest of the evening or day whenever you're listening to this, and I'll see you at the edge of the miraculous. Bye-bye.